Well, I'm puzzled. I don't exactly understand it, but here's what I would say that you have to know about Amanita muscaria. Number one, it's seasonally variant. Number two, it's geologically variant. The ones that grow in Appalachia are nothing like the ones in the Pacific Northwest, and neither of them are like the ones in Siberia. Okay, so it's seasonally variable. That means earlier in the season it can be stronger or weaker than it is later in the season. And then the third consideration is that it's genetically variable. So just the genetics of it can cause it to be strong or weak. Well, here we have a 3-variable system in place already, and now you're going to drop into it a 4th variable, the vagaries of your own personality while under the influence of a strange and powerful drug. Now we have enough variables in the mix that we can't predict where anybody's going with it, whether anybody's going to get high or not. I took it twice in my life, and once it was simply a bellyache. It was up behind Boulder in Colorado, and I ate a dinner plate-sized specimen and had a terrible stomachache for hours. A few years later, someone told me you macerate it in hot brandy, and then that's the way to do it. I hiked up Strawberry Canyon behind Berkeley and set up my little alcohol lamp and my brandy and my whole thing, and did quite a slug of this stuff and sat down on my blanket to make my examination of conscience and await my fate. And I closed my eyes, and nothing seemed to be happening. And about 20 minutes later, I opened my eyes, and I'd lost 50% of my vision. It was coming in on me. Everything was turning fuzzy and then I had to deal with the possibility, can I find my way out of here? Stone blind. Should I stay here and go blind and then wait through the blindness, assuming it will pass and assuming it's not going to be days? Or what should I do? And it was somewhat of a panicky situation because I really didn't want to sit there blind as a bat for a day or two. So I ran, the old berserker myth. I was able to summon enormous energy to go leaping through the dimly discerned woods that were fading out all around me. And I got to a road, and then I said, well, okay, now I'm at a road, but I'm also completely stoned and carrying on in this outrageous way. So I found a culvert and crawled into the culvert and then went blind and stayed in the culvert about 10 hours and then crawled out and made my way down the road saying, who needs this? It was just a completely disheveling experience on every level. Once in a while, you will meet somebody who will just swear to you that this is the finest thing around. And I don't know what to say to them. I remember someone came to a talk of mine, and they talked about how in New Mexico in the early 60s there were a series of rainy years and the Amanita came out, and this guy said he took it and fell into a trance, and when he awoke it was like a Jack and the Beanstalk situation. There was a tree that went to the moon as far as he could tell. And as he lay there, unable to move, but gazing at this tree which went to heaven, several tens of thousands, according to him, of elves appeared on the scene, journeying across the plain. And when they got to this tree, there was a big powwow, and they wanted to climb the tree, but then some voices were raised among their number saying, "You can't climb the world tree wearing leather." And so as he watched, hundreds of elves stripped off their little leather jerkins and their little pointed shoes and their little caps, and were throwing them in big piles and climbing up the tree with their little rear ends hanging out of the tree like double Christmas tree ornaments. You know, was it enlightening? What can you say about an experience like that? So basically, what I think about it, and I may be, number one, dead wrong, number two, parochial to the point of being almost racist in this judgment, but I think what's going on is you don't want to apply Siberian standards to what constitutes great entertainment, because things are dull in Siberia. And what they think of as a fascinating Saturday night full of wild changes and ups and downs, most of us would find very, very trying. There's a lot of this. The psychology of pain and the interpretation of sensations within the body is very different from people to people, as evinced by my story this morning of the guys who slam each other on the chest when intoxicated by DMT. The fact that they prefer to drink reindeer urine with amanita in it rather than amanita straight tells you that even among the true believers there's a certain waffling on how good this is.
An example of how a very ancient folkway can be incorporated into our culture without us even realizing it, and is provided by discussing Amanita muscaria. If you go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and you look up Santa Claus, they'll tell you that it has to do with St. Nicholas and it got started in the 11th century. But when you look at the Santa Claus story, it's a perfect mythologium to analyze from this point of view, because look what's going on with Santa Claus. First of all, Santa Claus's colors are red and white, the colors of the Amanita muscaria, for sure. Santa Claus lives at the North Pole. What does this mean? It means that Santa Claus lives at the Axis Mundi, where Yggdrasil, the magic world ash of Welsh mythology, has taken root. Santa Claus flies. This is what shamans do. Santa Claus is the master of the reindeer, the animal most associated with the Amanita muscaria. Santa Claus is aided in his work by troops of elves. And what is the work of Santa Claus? To build toys for children. Remember the DMT thing, saying, "Look at this, look at this." Well, those were off-duty elves, clearly. So here are all the motifs. And I believe that for children in our culture, that all the Christer stuff is not what Christmas is about. Christmas is about standing in front of the tree on Christmas morning with the gifts arrayed and the twinkling lights on. Well, that tree is the tree that the Amanita muscaria forms its symbiotic relationship to. It's always spruce or pine that it has a mycorrhizal relationship to. So the number of motifs relating Santa Claus to a cult of Amanita muscaria, there's almost nothing but relational motifs there. And yet if you suggest this to people, they just back away in horror, you know.